You deserve friendships that feel solid, like a firm handshake or a good cup of coffee on a quiet morning. Steady, simple, and leaving you better than before. But here's the truth. Not everyone who calls themselves a friend is one. Some people drain your energy. Some pull you into their chaos, and if you're not careful, they chip away at your peace slowly, quietly, until one day you wonder why you feel so worn out. In this video, we're going to talk about 7 clear signs of a bad friend. These are the behaviors that, if left unchecked, will cost you your time, your energy, and even your self-respect. And if you're a man who values peace, dignity, and strength, you'll want to know what to watch for. This isn't about judgment. It's about awareness and protecting the life you've worked hard to build. We'll take wisdom from the Stoics, and I'll share a few lessons I've learned the hard way. So, grab your coffee. Let's have a straight talk about the people you let close, because your time and your peace are too valuable to waste. 1, they drain your energy, not fill it. Ever walk away from a conversation feeling like someone took something from you? Not money, not time, but something deeper, your energy, your clarity, your peace. You sat down feeling fine, but by the time you left, there was a weight on your shoulders that wasn't there before. It's subtle at first. You tell yourself you're just tired or had a long day. But if you look closer, you'll realize it's not your day that's draining you. It's them. Bad friends have a way of doing that. They don't come into your life swinging a bat. They come with their stories, their crises, their endless need for attention. At first, you think you're helping. You think this is what good men do, stand by their friends, but slowly you notice it's a one-way street. You're always giving, they're always taking, and nothing ever changes. They're never better. They never listen. It's the same problems on repeat, and you're stuck there holding their weight. I had a friend like that once. I'll call him Mike. We'd been close for years, knew each other from way back. He was always in some kind of trouble. Business failing, marriage on the rocks, health scares. Every conversation was a fire that only I could put out. And I tried. Lord knows I tried. But one day I realized something. Mike didn't want solutions, he wanted company in the chaos. He wanted someone to sit in the mess with him, not to clean it up. And every time I tried to help, he'd nod, smile, and next week, be right back in the same place, sometimes worse. It wasn't about life being hard. Life's hard for all of us. It was about him choosing to stay stuck and expecting me to stay there with him. The Stoics warned us about this. Seneca said, associate with people who are likely to improve you, not people who leave you drained, not people who cling to their misery and call it honesty. You've got to guard your peace like it's something sacred, because it is. And I know that might sound harsh. Maybe you're thinking, that's not what a friend does. A friend sticks around. But I'll tell you, there's a difference between support and sacrifice. Supporting someone means standing by them as they work through their struggle. Sacrificing yourself means letting them drag you into it when they have no intention of climbing out. Here's the truth. We all have limited energy, limited time, limited life. And the men who lived before us, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they understood this better than anyone. They taught that your mind, your energy, and your character are yours to protect. When you give it away freely to someone who's only there to take, you're not being noble, you're being reckless. And over time you lose yourself, so what's the solution? You draw the line. You offer help, but you don't carry their burden for them. You give advice once, maybe twice, and if they don't take it, you let them walk their path. You don't let their storms become yours. And you focus on your own life, your own virtue, your own peace. Because at the end of the day, a true friend doesn't leave you empty. They challenge you, they sharpen you, they fill your cup even as you fill theirs. And if you're surrounded by men who leave you drained, it's time to ask yourself a hard question. Am I walking with people who lift me up or pull me down? Because in the end, that choice is yours. And it matters more than you think. 2, they keep score like it's a game. Some friendships start to feel like a debt you didn't sign up for. Every favor they do for you, every time they lend a hand, it gets logged somewhere, tallied up like points in a game you didn't even know you were playing. And one day, when you least expect it, they hand you the bill. Remember when I helped you move, or that time I covered dinner? You owe me. It's not said outright, of course. It comes in sideways glances, in guilt trips, in little comments that remind you they're keeping score. I had a friend like that years ago, Tom. We'd known each other a long time, helped each other out more times than I could count. But I started noticing a tone creeping into his voice whenever we talked about plans. If I said I was too busy to meet up or couldn't do him a favor, he'd remind me of everything he'd done for me. Not just recently, but years ago. Things I had long thought were done out of friendship, not obligation. And slowly, I realized Tom didn't see friendship the way I did. For him, it was an exchange. He gave, but there was always an expectation that it would come back to him with interest. This isn't generosity, it's control. It's about maintaining power in the relationship by making sure the scales are always tipped in their favor, and it wears you down. Before long, you find yourself doing things not out of genuine care, but because you don't want to feel like you're in their debt. The Stoics warned against this mindset. Marcus Aurelius wrote that when we do good for others, it should be as natural as a vine producing grapes. We don't stand there counting, waiting for applause. We give because it's right, not because we expect something back. So, how do you deal with a friend who keeps score? You step back. You recognize that real friendship doesn't demand payment. It doesn't leave you feeling indebted or guilty. True friendship is freely given and freely received, and when you find yourself in a friendship that feels like a contract, you have a choice. You can keep playing their game, or you can walk away and find peace. 3. They disrespect your boundaries. Boundaries are one of the clearest indicators of self-respect. They are the lines we draw to protect our time, energy, and peace of mind. And yet, bad friends will often test those boundaries, not by accident, but by design. They hear you say no, but they press on anyway. They see where you've drawn the line and they step over it to see what you'll do. And when you do nothing, they push a little further next time. It becomes a cycle, one that leaves you feeling disrespected, drained, and ultimately disconnected from yourself. In Stoic philosophy, boundaries are not optional. They are essential to living a virtuous and tranquil life. Marcus Aurelius said that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you allow people to disrespect you, to intrude upon your peace, you invite chaos into your life. You compromise your character, and over time, you lose your sense of who you are. Bad friends exploit this. They test your willingness to stand your ground, and if you don't, they learn that your limits are negotiable. What's really happening here isn't just a matter of disrespect, it's a matter of control. When someone constantly ignores your boundaries, they are saying, in effect, my needs are more important than your values. And if you let that go unchallenged, it reinforces their belief and weakens your resolve. Over time, you start second-guessing yourself. You feel resentment, even anger, but you push it aside because confrontation feels uncomfortable. But in Stoic thinking, discomfort is not an excuse to abandon what is right. You hold your ground because it is your duty to protect your own peace. A friend who respects you will respect your boundaries. They might not always agree with them, but they will understand that they are there for a reason. They won't try to persuade you to bend them for their convenience. A bad friend, on the other hand, will bulldoze right through again and again until there's nothing left but regret. The solution is simple, though not always easy. Enforce your boundaries calmly, firmly, without apology. You're not doing it to punish anyone. You're doing it because your peace, your time, and your life are worth guarding. In the words of Epictetus, no man is free who is not master of himself. Master yourself. Set your lines and stand by them. Those who value you will respect them. Those who don't won't. And that tells you all you need to know. For they only show up when they need something. There's a certain kind of friend who vanishes the moment they're comfortable and only reappears when they need something. You know the pattern. Months, maybe even years, go by without a word. And then suddenly there's a message. Friendly enough, asking how you are, maybe throwing in a little nostalgia for old times. But soon the real reason they're back becomes clear. They want something. Maybe it's a favor, a loan, or an introduction. Whatever it is, the conversation turns transactional before you can even get your bearings. The Stoics warned us about people like this. Though they didn't have smartphones or casual text messages to deal with, they understood human nature. Seneca spoke of the difference between real friendship and utility. True friends are those who walk beside you in all seasons, not just the harvest. But there are those who see relationships as tools, not connections. They treat people like wells to draw from, not companions to journey with. And when they've taken what they want, they disappear again, only to return when they're thirsty once more. The problem with this dynamic is that it leaves you feeling hollow, used, as if your worth to them exists only when you're useful. And over time, if you're not careful, you start to question your own value outside of what you can offer. That's a dangerous road for any man, especially one who's worked hard to build a life of integrity and self-respect. From a psychological standpoint, people who only show up when they need something are often operating from a place of entitlement. They don't see boundaries, they see opportunities. They're not thinking about your time, your energy, or your life. They're focused on solving their problem, and you just happen to be the most convenient solution at that moment. This isn't friendship, it's exploitation in a friendly disguise. Stoic philosophy offers a simple remedy: clarity. Be clear with yourself about what you will and will not accept in your life. Marcus Aurelius wrote that, "Our lives are what our thoughts make them." If you allow someone to treat you like a convenience store, open when they need something, closed when they don't, you're agreeing to play that role, but you can choose differently. When someone resurfaces after months of silence, don't rush to accommodate. Ask yourself whether this person has shown up for you when it mattered. Friendship isn't about keeping score, but it is about mutual respect. True friends don't vanish when they're comfortable and only return when they're in need. They're present, through thick and thin, without conditions. A man living by Stoic principles knows the difference. He gives freely but not foolishly. He offers help, but not at the cost of his own dignity. And when someone shows up only to take, he's not bitter. He's discerning. He knows his peace of mind isn't something to trade for someone else's convenience, and neither is yours. 5. They criticize more than they celebrate. There's a kind of friend who seems to have made it their life's mission to point out every flaw, every shortcoming, every tiny misstep you make. They call it honesty. They tell you they're just keeping it real or that they only want what's best for you. But over time, their words don't feel like guidance. They feel like small cuts, and they start to add up. Instead of walking away from your conversations feeling sharper, you leave feeling smaller. Remember telling a friend about a personal project I had finally finished. It had taken me months, early mornings, late nights, working through the doubts that come with trying something new. When I told him about it, I expected maybe a handshake or a "well done." What I got instead was a reminder of everything that could go wrong now that it was done. His words weren't advice. They were thinly veiled criticism, designed to remind me of every possible flaw in my effort. At first I told myself it was just his way, but deep down, it chipped away at the pride I had in my accomplishment. This is how bad friends erode you, not through outright insults, but through persistent doubt disguised as concern. And it's important to recognize this pattern, because if you don't, you can start to internalize it. You begin to anticipate criticism even when you're doing well. You second-guess yourself, and eventually, you stop sharing your wins because you're tired of feeling like they're never enough. The Stoics had a simple approach to this. Epictetus taught that we should focus on what is within our control, our own judgments, our own actions, and not the opinions of others. A man who lives by Stoic principles doesn't need the approval of the crowd, but he also knows that true friendship should feel like mutual growth, not a competition where one person wins by making the other smaller. Psychologically, the person who always criticizes is often wrestling with their own insecurities. They may not even realize that their comments are more about themselves than about you, but that's not your problem to fix. Your responsibility is to recognize when someone is more invested in dimming your light than helping you shine brighter. A good friend will celebrate your victories. They will give honest feedback, yes, but it will come from a place of respect and a desire to see you grow. If someone is always quick to find the flaw, slow to offer genuine support, it's worth asking why you're keeping them so close. Choose the company of those who lift you up, not tear you down. Your peace and your growth depend on it. 6. They gossip about everyone. There's something unsettling about a person who can't resist sharing someone else's business. You know the type. They lower their voice, lean in close, and suddenly it feels like you're in on some kind of secret. At first it might even seem harmless, like you're being trusted with something important. But over time you start to notice a pattern. Every time you're with them, they have a new story about someone's failure, someone's private life, someone's mistake. And if you pay attention, you realize something important. If they're so quick to tell you about others, what do you think they're saying about you when you're not around? I learned that lesson sitting at a coffee shop with a man I thought I knew well. He spent an entire hour listing the faults of people we both worked with, who was failing in their marriage, who was close to getting fired, who was pretending to have it all together but was drowning in debt. The longer I sat there, the heavier the air became. At first I just listened. Then it hit me. If he could speak this way about people he'd known for years, some of whom had trusted him with those very details, what stopped him from doing the same to me? The Stoics were clear on this kind of behavior. Epictetus warned against idle talk. Marcus Aurelius spoke about living in truth and simplicity. Gossip is the opposite of both. It's messy. It feeds the worst parts of human nature, the parts that feel bigger when others seem smaller. But a Stoic life demands discipline. It demands we master our own speech and avoid indulging in things that don't serve our character or our peace of mind. From a psychological standpoint, gossip often comes from insecurity. A person who constantly talks about others is usually avoiding their own reflection. They distract from their own shortcomings by shining a harsh light on everyone else's. And if you're not careful, they'll pull you into it. Soon, you find yourself contributing, agreeing, nodding along. And whether you realize it or not, you're now part of the same cycle. The solution is simple, but it requires strength. Step away from those conversations. Change the subject, refuse to engage, and more importantly, take note of the people who bring these stories to your door. A true friend speaks the same whether you're in the room or not. A wise man knows the value of his words and doesn't spend them tearing down others. In the end, we are who we surround ourselves with. If someone thrives on gossip, they'll never protect your name. Choose better company and be better company yourself. That's the Stoic way. 7, they make you feel small. There's a certain type of person who seems to make it their mission to chip away at your confidence little by little. They make comments that seem harmless on the surface. Maybe they laugh it off and call it a joke, but you notice something deeper happening. After spending time with them, you walk away feeling smaller, not because they argued with you or had a different opinion, but because they used subtle remarks, backhanded compliments, and quiet digs that leave you questioning yourself. It's a slow erosion of your self-respect, and that's no accident. A bad friend will often hide behind humor to deliver these blows. They might point out your flaws in front of others, cloak their criticism in sarcasm, and dismiss your discomfort as you being too sensitive. But the truth is, these are not jokes. They're carefully disguised criticisms meant to elevate themselves at your expense. And if you allow it to continue, you begin to doubt your own worth. You start wondering if they're right. That is exactly where they want you, unsure of yourself and reliant on their approval. From a Stoic point of view, this is a loss of your inner control. Epictetus taught that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent, but if you give that consent over and over, it becomes a habit. A man grounded in Stoic principles understands that his sense of self is not up for negotiation. He does not hand over his dignity for the sake of someone else's amusement or comfort. Psychologically, people who make others feel small often struggle with their own insecurities. They diminish those around them to feel bigger themselves, but their struggle is not your responsibility to solve. What is within your control is how you respond. You have the power to hold your ground, to set clear boundaries, and to refuse to engage in relationships where respect is absent. The solution isn't complicated, though it may be uncomfortable. You must recognize when the relationship consistently leaves you feeling less, not more. And then you act. You limit your time with people who diminish you. You speak plainly when a line has been crossed. And if they continue, you walk away with your dignity intact. A man's worth is not determined by others' opinions. It's forged in how he lives, how he acts, and who he chooses to stand beside. Choose wisely. Your peace depends on it.